Hello, I'd like to welcome you to the future of community risk reduction. We're going to take just a couple minutes and talk about the community risk reduction, what it is, and how in the future of it. Looking at some numbers and seeing what is going well, and how we can what we can do to better serve the community in which we work. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Jared Penland. I work for the Swannanoa Volunteer Fire Department in Western North Carolina. We are a small combination department with 17 full-time members, about 10 volunteers, and about 10 to 15 part-time employees. We run 5 full-times per shift. We also try to run at the minimum of 1 part-time employee per shift. We try to run, optimal is 2 part-timers per shift to get our numbers up to 7 per shift, 24 hours a day. So I started in the fire service in 2014. I started as a junior firefighter for the Riceville Fire Department, who just sits right beside us here in Swannanoa. I started there because Swannanoa didn't have a junior fire program, but they welcomed me with open arms, and I was able to get a lot of experience with them. I left them in 2016, whenever I turned 18, and I came back to Swannanoa to be a volunteer. And then I was hired on in Swannanoa in 2017, and at that point is when I went back to Riceville to be a part-time firefighter. So I started full-time for the Swannanoa Fire Department in 2017 as a firefighter. And then I was fortunate enough in 2022 to be promoted to the rank of captain. It was the fall of 22 I was promoted. So that's a little bit about me from my fire service. I also have a bachelor's degree in fire and emergency service administration through Fayetteville State University, and I am currently working on my master's program from Columbia Southern. I'm in my second class there and liking it so far. But let's dive into, let's start to look at some of this. So motivation. What is a way that you can motivate yourself whenever it comes to community risk reduction? A lot of times, whenever you think of community risk reduction, you have fire and life safety education paired with that. And a lot of times, the person that does the fire and life safety education is that rookie guy because all the senior men just do not want to do it. So, how can we motivate everybody within your organization about community risk reduction? For me, my motivation is my community. I look at my community and see how can I better serve them and what are the needs of my community. With that being, we take a broader look at it from what is not just what the community as a whole wants, but what does each individual little community inside of the Swannanoa area need. We have a few apartment complexes in our area. So what are the apartment complexes needs? What are we seeing that is an issue with them that we can better reduce their risk of injury, fire, or so on? We have an older population in our community. Those slips, trips, and falls, how can we better serve them? What is ways that we can go out and give them fall prevention techniques, helping their family members understand signs of stroke? Those are all different things, but it all comes back to your community and to better serve them. But with that, you must have a culture. You must have a very positive culture. As you see here, this is the Alabama, because I am a huge Alabama football fan, and with their head coach Nick Saban, I think he has created a winning culture within the Alabama football team. As you see many times within this team, they have players who are buying into the process. A lot of times you don't see people who are transferring a lot out of Alabama. You don't see some people transferring into Alabama because there's people who go to the University of Alabama stay there. Well, there must be a reason why. How has Nick Saban created this culture that wants to keep people to coming into his program? So with that, how do we as fire service leaders create a culture within your organization for community risk reduction? We know there's a need. We know that there is a path, but how can we get people into the organization to better serve that community with that aspect. So we take a look at our culture. So our culture is a very big idea in your department. If you have a poor culture, a poor general culture, then you're probably going to have a poor culture when it relates to community risk reduction. If you have a positive culture within your organization, you could still have a poor community risk reduction culture, but let's shift it to make a whole culture, whole organizational culture that encompasses both a positive changing in your department as well as community risk reduction. For some people, community risk reduction may be a new terminology. Like I stated earlier, a lot of times fire and life safety education gets thrown in the mix whenever we're talking about community risk reduction. But we need to change that culture because fire and life safety is one thing. Community risk reduction is something completely different. Uh, a lot of times I myself even have considered community risk reduction alongside with fire and life safety education. It's okay to put the two together, but there are two separate things. One thing that I look at whenever I'm trying to think about ways to better serve my community is what are the calls are we going on? What are the community members needing of us most? So I take a look at the NIFRS report within North Carolina and the United States. This is on a percentage. So the national average EMS call is 65%. So 65% of the calls of the national average, 65.4%. If you look at North Carolina, we're at 58.2%. So we all know that EMS is it's a lot of our call volume. It is a big part of our day-to-day life. We go to those medical calls. We go in to help people up. So I also another incident I look at is good intent. What are those good intent calls? Are they going to assisting somebody up off the floor? Are they going to help somebody with the smoke alarms? Those are all community risk reduction aspects that we are responding to each day. But are we seeing that as a certain community? We'll just say an elderly community. Are they needing more of that? How can we go out and help them with that? You also, big thing is looking at our fires. For the North Carolina's average percentage of fires is 5.1, whereas the national average is 3.7%. We're not going to as many fires, and I think community risk reduction, fire and life safety education is a big part of that. That program has taken off, and with Sparky and getting it into the kids in schools and talking to people, we're seeing that reduction of fires in our community. But how can we get some of these other numbers down to better serve the community members? We take a look at different possibilities. Or is it we're going to our community members' homes and asking, hey, what is it that you need and how can we better serve you? I think of a lady in our area who is prone to falling. We've been to her probably 20 times in the past year, if not more. How can we make sure that whenever she falls, how can we help and make sure that she does not fall as often? One thing that we look at is the socks that have the stickiness on the bottom. Is that something that she needs? Is that somewhere that we can help her reduce that risk? But it also goes, it's not just medical calls that we're looking at. We're looking at motor vehicle accidents. Our community has Interstate 40 that runs right through the middle. We cover around 9 miles of Interstate 40. Wrecks. How can we reach out to people and discuss risk reduction when it comes to wrecks? The Click It or Ticket program was a great program. What else can we put into play that can help with wrecks whenever it pertains to texting and driving and so on? But I also want to show you just want to know those numbers. Like I said, we're a small department. Just this past in 2023, we ran 1,920 calls. For us, that is a lot whenever we look at the trend as we are trending upwards in call volume. So we look at that. So in 2022, we ran 1,675 calls. So you can tell we have ran a decent amount of more calls just last year. But why? What is that? Looking at some numbers, our medical calls in 2022, we ran 824 calls, whereas in 2023 we ran 984 calls. So we're seeing an uptick in medical calls, whether it be a stroke, heart attack, chest pain, breathing problems, whatever it may be. But what can we do to help those people? I often think about whenever we go to a cardiac arrest, do those family members have the CPR training? Is there a way that we as a fire department can host a CPR class for the layperson, for our community to come in and learn? Another one that we are seeing a down from our incidences in 2022, our fire alarms were at 161 calls, whereas in 23 we have 130. What is the reasoning behind that? Is it because we did some efforts with a local college that we have and discussing some things with them? Who knows? But you can see that we have a down of number. The only one that did go up that would be a little bit on the concerning is our fire calls. In 2022, we ran 54 fires, whereas in 23 we ran 59. Personally, I believe it was a busier year for fires, but why was that? Why did we run more fires? Were they due to cooking? Were they due to children playing with matches? That's where the fire and life safety comes in. But as a community risk, how can we do to help them with what can we do with our community with fires? We know cooking fires are big, children playing with matches, children playing with lighters, even accidental fires, overloading electrical outlets. Those are all avenues that we as a department can go down to make sure that our citizens are better served with that. So those, like I said, those are our numbers. Your numbers could be drastically different, but as you can see, even from North Carolina, from the United States, all of the things are relatively similar. EMS is the number one. So we are a fire department, but how can we reduce the risk whenever it pertains to our older community members and stuff along those lines? So we see that there is definitely a need to go out, canvass our areas, see what people's needs are. And like I said, we've seen an uptick in our public service calls because we've had people falling. People are becoming more prone to fall. And we're also seeing that changes in society. Changes in society is a big thing. Look at COVID-19. COVID-19 has made people realize that they can stay home more and they can work from home. Even in our community, we had a financial group that was going to come in. They're going to build a 30,000 square feet headquarters. COVID happened. They realized that we can actually keep our employees at home, and there would not be a need for that. So we're seeing people at home more often. So is that a reason why we're having an uptick in our call volume because people are at home more? Is it because you live in a more older community where people are just naturally prone to stay at home more? Those are just all different aspects that go into it. So what we've seen is we're seeing a lot of more people that are staying at home. They're working from home. I actually have many family members who work from home. That's just another option that may not have been available 10 or so years ago. So that is why we are seeing more people at home now, just because it's more of an option. But like I said, I think COVID-19 was a big play in that because businesses and whatnot were able to see, hey, we can send these people home. They can do the same amount of work at home that they are here in the office, but you're not paying for your lights. You're not paying for all the facilities at that area, whereas they're just now at home. So those are changes in society. So how is that going to affect our risk reduction? People are cooking more because they're at home. It's a whole big big thing. But with them being at home, the ones that may or may not benefit from, let me back up, everybody will be able to benefit from community risk reductions. But you also have your certain people that you want to target more often than other. So you go out to look, you find your stakeholders, people that are willing to help within the community, your businesses that are willing to help. We have an Ace Hardware that in our community. What can we do? How can we utilize them for any type of material that may be needed? Hurricane, we're not prone to hurricanes being a little bit inland, but on the coast here in the mountains, we may not be, but we get substantial amount of rain. What can, how can the hardware store help us with that, with those aspects? Can they help us withstand? Reaching out to those stakeholders, people that are in your community and seeing, hey, we need a little bit of help. How can they help? A lot of times they're great to help. We have a grocery store distribution center, not in our district, but in Black Mountain, our neighboring district, but we have one of their stores in our district. How can they help? How can they give us water for if we have a water crisis? How can they help us get who knows what the it's an endless opportunity, but we just have to go out and talk to them and say, hey, we need your help. How can you help us? What can you do to help our community members reduce their risk of whatever it may be? Falls, if they need batteries for smoke detectors, whatever it may be, how can you help? Going back to the natural disasters, how can you help make sure that we have water, not only for the community members, but us as responders? Hey, can you provide water for us? We've got a big incident. We may need some water, food. Reaching out to your businesses and finding those people who are willing to help your community. You need to locate them and find them and utilize them in your whole reduction plan. Those are just different ways that you can do that. But another good way that you can better serve your community with community risk reduction is getting out and going to your education and training. Bettering yourself for your community is always big. There are numerous conferences that you can attend and go into different trainings out there. There's online classes. I think online classes have taken the world just going everywhere. You can Google just about any type of class online, and I'm sure there's a video or something that you can take that's going to better your knowledge, and then in return can help your community. And networking with other like-minded individuals within your industry, the fire service, is going to benefit not only you as a person, but it will in return benefit your department and your community members. I try to attend as many conferences each year that I can because I learn from other people. I try to network with other people that may not even be near the same size as my community. Just talking with different people from even municipalities, with us being a nonprofit, something that they may be doing could still benefit your community in some way or the other. So going out, getting that education, getting that training, that is going to benefit you one way or the other, and you're going to learn something from that you can bring back to your community. The future. The future is something that is going to take off no matter what, whether we are ready or not. New technology, new innovations is being created every single day. And how can we encompass ourselves into our community to like I've said this for a while, to better serve our community? Electric cars. Are we seeing we're seeing an uptick in electric cars, but are our homeowners houses prepared to take on that extra electrical charge of power? Are we starting to overload stuff? How can we look at our community and see, hey, let's talk about your electricity whenever you're plugging in your cars. Human behavior is going to change. That is a big deal with the future, how humans are reacting with one another. Like I said, people are more apt to be home. So are they going to start being unsociable because they're not having a big social life, getting out? So how can we communicate with those people? Uh, the the way that the human behavior is changing is very big. But there's also other changes. There are many changes that are going to happen in the future, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's 15 years down the road. But as members of the fire service, we must prepare ourselves for that. We must prepare ourselves to be ready for the future. So going back, going back to slide, those education and training. You may not know what's going to be next, but if you network, go to your education training, continue your learning experience, then you will be ready for the future whenever the future comes. Maybe not exactly, but let's just say something comes out next year. If you go to a conference next year, you may learn about that, bring it back to your department, and then you can take that back out into there. But the next thing is reducing our own risk. This is a picture that was taken on a bridge as we were standing. There is a fallen officer was taken underneath this bridge. So I wanted to share that because we must also reduce our own risk. One of the biggest things right now in the fire service is cancer, and I am a big component, and I will talk about that until I'm blue in the face about how important cancer legislation, cancer prevention, whatever it may be, is to our members. To each one of those people standing on that bridge, cancer could affect them in one way or the other. So we need to look at reducing our own risk whenever it pertains to that by washing our turnout gear, making sure that our turnout gear is in a ready state but clean, and making sure that all of our equipment is clean, making sure that our members take showers after all that. That is one of the biggest ways that we can reduce our own cancer risk is by following these. The Concord Fire Department here in North Carolina has done a great job with their cancer initiatives. And I believe that our department as well has taken on some of those initiatives that they show. Gross decon after structure fire, not wearing the same hood. Whenever you taking your hood off, not letting it down below you, sit on your neck, letting those carcinogens soak into all those pores of your neck has shown sign of throat cancers and whatnot. But it goes all the way back to education and training to where we must go to these educations and training to know about those legislations, know about those techniques of preparing your members of not wearing dirty turnout gear. And it also goes back to creating a culture to where we are protecting our own from whether it be mental health, cancer, whatever it may be. But you also must have a situational awareness aspect. Situational awareness is a big ideology and way of looking at something of our own risk, looking at being prepared for the structural collapse to happen. Trying to stay one step ahead will also be a way to reduce our own risk. Situational awareness can also look at watching the weather channel when a storm may come in to reduce our own risk. Hey, we're going to see where an uptick of wind's going to come in at 3 or 4 o'clock, preparing our guys and our ladies that may go out to understand, hey, the wind's going to pick up here. Be ready for that just in case it does happen. So there are many ways, but we must protect our own, or we're not going to be able to protect anybody. So I just think that is so very important that we protect our own. And it doesn't stop. You start right now of understanding different ways. Whether if you have a cancer policy in place or not, go find one, adopt it, read over it, see how you can implement that into your own department. There are many things that out there. You just got to find it. You have to go to education and training. You have to better set yourself for your community, but you also must better yourself for your members. Community is just as important, but so are the ones who are working with you and for you. So I thank you for attending. Uh, this is the conclusion of the future of community risk reduction, but the future, it doesn't end here. You must go out, you must educate, you must find your stakeholders, you must understand the changes in society that are going to occur. Look at your numbers. What are your numbers? Are they going up in one certain region and down in another? How can you attack that? How can you go look at that, look at them head on? Um, your culture. Take a step and take a look at your culture and see how you can better your department's culture. The culture of your department may be great, it may be poor, but take a step back, take a look at it, and see how you, as a leader in your organization, can better your culture, not only for your own, not for just the whole organization, but as community risk reduction. Be ready for the future because it's coming, and learn about it, train about it, and then once you learn and train about it, educate the ones who weren't there. Educate them so they can prepare themselves. The future of community risk reduction is here with technology, from human behavior. There's just many different other changes because the way that our world's going, it is ever revolving. Every day it's going to be something different. Every day some newer technology comes out. Every day somebody may be staying at home working for the first time. Prepare yourself, prepare your community. And as I will always say, be safe and thank you.